I want to talk to you about a major initiative which is part of the MS Research Flagship and has been funded to a large extent by the MRFF grant, which is the Understanding MS Massive Open Online course. And again, you know, a lot of you will have done this course, so you'll know what I'm talking about. A MOOC is basically a free, open access course which you can do, you can enrol in, anyone can enrol in and can do on the internet. Now, we were inspired because Menzies and the University of Tasmania has had a large experience in developing MOOCs, and many of you will have heard about the Wicking Dementia MOOCs, which have been some of the most successful courses ever done in this space. And in 2017, Andrew Palmer says, well, if they can do it, surely we can do an MS MOOC. At that point, he stopped doing anything and left it to me to try and organise. But it was actually a really, really interesting experience, and it really relied on the brilliance of a former postdoc, Susie Claflin, who unfortunately is moved on. But she really inspired this work. But the Understanding MS MOOC was developed by us at the MS Research Flagship. Its contents and mode of delivery was again informed by the Consumer and Community Reference Committee. And there's certain things that they really were keen on us doing. One was that it had to be a positive experience. We had to emphasise positivity throughout it, just like Meg has done. You know, we can tell lots of gloom and doom stories about people with MS, but that doesn't help people with MS. You want to give people that information which they can use to improve their lives. And therefore we aim to, when we develop the MS MOOC, to have it as a positive experience, to emphasise positivity at every time point. We wanted to also to make sure that we engage consumers in the development at every stage. And again, Meg was involved with the MS MOOC right from the beginning. With the funding for the early development was provided by the UTAS and MS Limited, which is now called MS Plus, and we are entirely grateful to those that funding that allowed us to get this off the ground. It's actually quite expensive to develop a MOOC because you've got to actually produce all the content, and the content takes time. It takes people's time. It takes expertise. It's not just somebody can do on their computer in their back room over one night. It took us a long time to develop. Again, I would emphasise that Dr. Susie Claflin was instrumental. Her positivity in being able to do this, and many of you will have seen Susie on the MOOC. And also to Viv Jones and Rachel Gates, who was kindly seconded to us from the Wicking Institute. They were really instrumental in the development of this program. The Wicking Dementia Research and Education Centre provided invaluable support. We didn't have to develop a background program to run this MOOC. We didn't have to develop the structure. We could just peg onto what they had already done, and that was a huge saving in cost and also in time. And again, I can't emphasise how important that collaboration has been and still is. So what has happened with the MOOC? We piloted it in 2019. It took us a little while to, from the initial idea to getting the content up and running. There have been 12 iterations of this course, and that includes the one that we're about to run in September 2024. To date, nearly 50,000 people worldwide have enrolled in the Understanding MS MOOC, and what is really surprising, more than 20,000 people have actually completed it, which is a completion rate of about 40%. Many of you will know that a lot of people click on an online course and say, I'll do this course, they never do it. And the overall completion rate of most MOOCs is about 8%. So for us to have 5 times that completion rate is really successful. It has been rated the #1 course it was in 2019, has been in the top 10 MOOCs in the world, and there are literally 50, 60, 70, 100,000 MOOCs at any one stage, from everything like how to fix your car to Understanding MS. And it's been rated as one of the top 10 MOOCs in the world for really in 2020, 2021, 22, 23 by Class Central, which is an international MOOC aggregator. It is now offered as a graduate training course by the University of Tasmania and is used as an onboarding tool by many domestic MS societies. And we ask that all of our new people coming into the MS flagship do the MOOC. The Medical Research Future Fund has provided funding for the Understanding MS MOOC from 2020 to 2024, which has been incredibly useful. Understanding MS has also been supported by additional funding from MS Plus and also from MS Australia. And again, without that funding, we could not run the MOOC. It's been taken by people from more than 180 countries around the world. So if anyone knows anyone in the Democratic Republic of Congo who would like to do the MOOC, or in Greenland, we'd be very appreciative. The top 5 countries by enrolments are Australia, obviously, the Great Britain, New Zealand, Canada, and India. These are the statistics of how many people have enrolled in the MOOC, and as you can see, we've just recently had our March MOOC where we had more than 4,000 people do it. So over this period of time, the numbers go up and down a little bit, and we've had some larger and some smaller MOOCs, but overall we have continuing and significant interest in the MOOC. And even people enrolling to do this September MOOC, which is still 3 months away, we've already got nearly 1,000 people enrolled. And as you can see, the majority of people are from Australia, but we are getting increasing international recognition. So user feedback is for the course has been universally positive. We do a completed survey after every MOOC, and we've just looked at that for the March MOOC, and there were 764 people completed that survey, and 96% would recommend it to others. 64% have applied information from the course in their everyday lives, and 98% were satisfied or very satisfied with the course, and 93% rated the online teaching as high quality. So these are a few comments from people, as you can see. People living with MS, people carers of MS, we're able to say how they found the MOOC, and these comments we get every time we run the course. People are, overwhelmingly supportive of what we have done. So what we also didn't do, we wanted the MOOC to be a community service, something that we could give back to the MS community. But we also were interested in understanding how the MOOC could affect people. Was it did it improve their lives? Was it, was it just like watching another Netflix series, or was it actually something that was actually affecting the way people, engage with people with MS, with people with MS, or people with MS engage with their community or their healthcare provider? So we, right from the start, designed a program of research around the MS MOOC. And it was instrumental right from the start, and we wanted to understand the experiences of those who took the course. Was it worthwhile to them? We wanted to improve the lives of those with MS by reducing the information disparity that exists between those people with MS, their families, and their supporters and healthcare professionals. We recognise that when someone is diagnosed with MS or encounters someone with MS, they really often know nothing. They may have heard some stuff, but it's often inaccurate, unrealistic, untrue, and Dr. Google, who we've already heard about, is equally unhelpful to a large extent about MS. And so we wanted to improve that information disparity, and that was one of the main aims of doing the MOOC, was to provide information to people with MS to improve their lives. We wanted to improve MS knowledge, health literacy, and also, most importantly, health resilience. We designed research programs around all these aspects, both quantitative and qualitative. And quantitative means counting, if you like. How many responses, how many people said yes, how many people said no, how old were they. And qualitative is about how they actually experienced and how they actually interacted with that data or that information. And to date, we've published 14 research projects or papers related to the MOOC, and with an additional one in preparation and one in review. And these are some examples of this. This is, could we actually change behaviour? And this was one of the things, which is one of the hardest things to shift in people in people in general. Almost everything. Once their behavioural patterns are established, it's really, really hard to change it. And we were able to show that we could actually modify people's behaviour in MS, and that included both in our ability to change that. And that was actually quite an important observation, that by just doing a course that we could actually change people's behaviour, not only just for the short term, but also in the long term. We also we're interested in how it changed people's ability to communicate about MS. Because as many of you know, people living with MS, it's one of the hardest things to do is how do you tell people you've got MS? How do you tell your employee? How do you tell people what it means and what it is? Because people have got very, very fixed ideas about what MS is and in the community, and they're often completely wrong. But how people communicate about MS was an important thing. We found that with the MS MOOC had a significant effect on the way people communicated about MS. We also were interested in how healthcare utilisation and applied in MS. Were people with MS more likely to engage with healthcare providers? And the answer was yes, they did. People with MS use a wide range of healthcare providers, and if they had greater knowledge and greater health resilience, which they developed through the MOOC, they were actually able to were significantly more satisfied with their engagement with healthcare providers. Again, that information disparity between those with MS or the community, if you like, and the healthcare professionals. If you know more, you actually get a better experience with healthcare. We also looked at whether people gained MS knowledge and whether that was sustained. We developed an MS knowledge assessment tool, which has now been used by quite a number of other researchers around the world to understand how much people actually know about MS. And we found that people with MS were actually really quite knowledgeable. They really did know a lot about their illness, but that we could still improve that. We could actually get that knowledge levels up significantly, and they maintained that knowledge. So we were able to show that we were able to educate the people who took the course, and that they maintained that knowledge. We've had quite a number of other research publications, which I won't go into in detail, but they're all here, and they're all, as you can see, Susie Claflin's name is very prominent on these papers, and she was a major driving force behind these papers, as was Julie Campbell. And so we've been able to provide information on all sorts of things related to the MS MOOC. And again, we'll keep on going through this, but I don't want to go through in great detail. But we were also interested in course completers, why people completed the course and why people didn't, what stopped them. And the major reason why people stopped doing the course was time. And that's like every other course on the internet or every other thing is, people's lives are busy. We've heard about how busy Meg's life is. And, this is what people with MS do. A lot of people lead very rewarding, complex lives, and finding time to do, their course was not one of them. We also want to know how one of the hardest things to shift in people with MS or any condition is their resilience. And if we could improve people's resilience, then it was one of the things we really wanted to do, was to show that we could actually improve their resilience to adversity. And again, we were able to show that there were gains in health resilience in people with MS by doing this course. So and one of the most important ones we put out there was how to build an MS MOOC, and that paper has been cited many times now, because it tells people, what we found out, how we struggled at times with certain aspects of it, and and it provides the blueprint so that people can do develop their own course. And and again, these are further papers just to show that we developed an MS knowledge assessment scale. So what's going on in the future? We aim to continue the Understanding MS MOOC as long as we can maintain funding for it. And we plan to, and we have been updating it regularly, providing new content so people can come back, and if they do the course again, it's up to date. It contains the most relevant information for them. And we believe that whilst it's still providing a useful service and it's considered worthwhile by the MS community, that we'd like to continue. And funding is always the same with everything. We want to keep funding to keep it going. Again, we have developed and are in the process of planning 4 new mini MOOCs, if you like, or bolt-ons, which are courses which are designed to add further information on specific topics in the MOOC. These are based on feedback from the MS community about subjects they felt needed revisiting or more in-depth coverage. And this is, again, is another example of how the community contributed to the MOOC. They come back and say, well, what about this? What about that? And these MOOCs these mini MOOCs are fully funded by the MRFF, and they are, and you'll hear a lot more about them very shortly, the mental health and MS, choosing a disease-modifying therapy, ageing well with MS, and supporting our MS carers. These are 4 topics that came directly from the MS community about what they'd like to know more about, and we've developed these courses specifically with that in mind. So, consumer involvement is the content and mode of delivery from the beginning was informed and developed in partnership with the MS community. And if you do the MOOC, you'll see members of this community talking about their lived experience of MS, about their diagnosis, how they felt when they were diagnosed, and what's happened since. And people find that one of the most important aspects of the MOOC is seeing other people with MS talk about the same things they're going through right at this moment. It's ideas for new content are developed completely in consultation with the MS community, as are reviews of the content, and they're reviewed prior to them going live. So again, contributors, particularly Susie and Rachel at the start, and Viv Jones, Helena Bilton, Alice Saul, who's taken over now, Chris Parker from Wicking, Sherry Tan again from Wicking, Rachel, who's here, is major driver of this program and will have a greater role in the MS MOOC going forward. Natasha Stevens, who's been invaluable. Again, funding MS Plus, MS Australia, Menzies, and the Medical Research Future Fund. The academic team, the people who've given their time for free to produce content for this MOOC. We've travelled to Melbourne, we've interviewed people in other cities. People have come down here specifically to produce content for us. The College of Health and Medicine media team and resources team have been invaluable, and again the Consumer and Community Reference Committee. So thank you.